All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It is Tuesday night. You see GFF grades in the description and in the title, and that means Solo Haberman, Guy Solo. I'm Guy, and John and I, wherever we are, together or apart, are brought to you by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's Handmade Vodka. Whatever you're drinking tonight, however you're drinking it this week or this weekend, we got a football game, bunch of games this week. Friday night, of course. Sounds like a bunch of the starters are going to play for the Niners. Support yourself at Tito's. Maybe it's a Tito's and ginger. That's what I like. Some people call that a mule, but I like a specific type of ginger beer, not ginger ale, not Canada Dry, too sweet. Ginger beer. I like the one at Trader Joe's, but they sell it, a lot of places. It's called Reed's. A John Daly, the iced tea, the lemonade, the Tito's, cannot lose. You hand somebody a John Daly, and it is immediate smile. But however you do it, Tito's Handmade Vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. I don't know what just happened there. Second stream of the day for me. Went out to Niners practice today. Second to last open Niners practice before the preseason game on Friday, the last one, and then they're into a regular schedule, which means no more GFF practice grades. We can do GFF game grades if you want, but I think they'll be less dramatic then. But if you missed an impromptu conversation with Tim Kawakami, our buddy, for a long time, Tim's been a long-time supporter of John and I. If you missed that conversation, it was live earlier today. Go check it out. Tim had some good stuff to say. It's not up yet, but I'm going to take the audio of the Tim conversation and put it on the podcast as well. So you can check that out. And I want to get into some of the stuff he said, but I started to talk about pre-practice. It was post Kyle Shanahan said a lot today. Started to talk about pre-practice, kind of what was going on. And then Tim came. I was like, Tim, are you around? He's like, yeah. So he came over, and we talked about quarterback. So you can go find that, and I'll get to some get to some more of some of the other news that is relevant, and then John and I will talk about it probably tomorrow as well. One guy doing ad reads, two getting paid for it. Yeah, it's called a partnership. Maybe you've heard of that before. It's a very simple process. I think it's safe to say John brings value to the show too. So I'm not worried about it. Okay, where should we begin? Let's be. You know what? Do we want to start with the GFF grades? Do we want to start with the Guy Football Focus grades from today? I'm going to start with the GFF grades, and I'm not going to dive deep into them because it was a weird day in that the grades all tell you solid. It was pretty sloppy from a pass standpoint in that there were a lot of 0 graded throws. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but there were a lot of 0 graded throws, which are your basic throws, that were incompletions or that were not, to me, they weren't completions, but they were negative throws or, everybody had a couple. Lance had a couple today. Brock definitely had a few today. Sam, I've got a couple today that were not perfect balls and they were incompletions, but they weren't negative throws. Maybe they were like Lance had a couple in the red zone that were, one was, I don't think, a good throw, but it's hard to tell. Twice he tried to throw to a guy in double coverage and he left it high. Sometimes it's hard, but especially in the red zone, to me, you miss high, that thing goes out of bounds and you live to fight another play. So those are not negative grades for me. So anyway, if you heard, I haven't seen any of the other, I try not to, read the other opinions on it too much, although I've seen some of the numbers that people have put out. It was not a great day for the pass game, but there were some great throws. Brock was a +2 today. It was a plus 0.5 day for Trey and a +1 day for Sam Darnold. I'm done with those grades. I'm just going to tell you this. I thought it was a really good day for Brock, all things considered. He had 2 excellent throws. He had 3+ throws for me of his 23 throws. 18 0 graded throws and 2 negative throws. I said I wasn't going to do the numbers, but I kind of like it, even though I'm not really actually a numbers guy. But he had a sideline throw to Kyle Juszczyk that was your classic Kyle Shanahan, gets our boy open, 44, Juice and Tito's down the sideline. And that ball in Niners recent history, has been airmailed or underthrown. Hitting the guy in stride has not been the most common outcome for that play for the 49ers. And Purdy hit him. I mean, he had to drop it in. It was not one of your wide ass open plays, WAOs. It was not a wide ass open play. It was schemed open, but it was not like he didn't have a big net to miss with, like sometimes happens. He had to drop it in perfectly. That was a great throw, a +1 throw for Brock. And then he had a corner touchdown that was, I got to go back through all the grades, which honestly, I have the grades collected, like I've added them up. I'm probably not going through all of the practice sheets here. I think this is what they find after they find your body, and they only found your body because of the smell. And a neighbor's dog has been barking out front of your house for 2 weeks. They come in, yes, this is what they find. That's what they find. So I don't share that with you with any pride, other than to say I've clearly hoarded it for the last. It's a lot of practice. You think GFF doesn't matter? Look at this effort that has gone on to grading practice throws. You find me anybody in the country not paid by the team that is grading practice throws this year. You're not going to find one. Not going to find one. But I think it might have been Brock's first +1.5, which these are rare throws. It was a great throw to Debo. Very tight window, extremely tight window. And what we've seen a lot of, and I've told you guys a lot, we haven't talked about it as much lately, but the deep ball in these practices, and this was not a deep ball per se, but the deep ball in these practices has been hit at a very low percentage for the 49ers, all quarterbacks, all receivers. And especially the deep ball to Debo, the deep ball has not been a high percentage play. This was not a deep ball, but it was a beautiful throw, kind of right over the defender's shoulder, right and only where Debo could get it. Very well done. Really nice catch to throw to Ayuk. And Ayuk is just, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but a protein shake, so I can beat a dead horse. Just fantastic. So good day for Brock. I mean, that would be my summary today for the quarterbacks. Another good day for Brock. No throws for Brandon Allen. 10 for Darnold. 8 for Trey. And effective day. More than effective. I thought it was a very good day for Brock Purdy today. Something I got into a little bit earlier with TK, but I didn't get to talk about it with him too much. If you missed it, I'm here to bang my chest and tell you the prediction was correct. That don't hold your breath for Kyle Shanahan's announcement that who his backup quarterback is going to be. He said it could change week to week. John and I were arguing yesterday about whether or not this storyline is going to die when the season begins or not. If it's changing week to week, then it's not going to die. Then John will be right about that one. Yes, the use check throw was a deep-ish throw. I mean, I'd say that was 30-yard throw, 25 air yard throw. I mean, it's not, we're not talking about one of those 10-yard throws, but it's also not a 50-yard throw. So yeah, if they're rotating backup quarterbacks, Kawakami said today, and I might pull the clip and play it for John tomorrow. He said he thinks there still is a quarterback competition, which, hearing established media member not give up on Trey Lance has to be music to a lot of people's ears. But I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised if it actually changes. If push comes to shove and he's got to replace Brock. At this point, my prediction remains. Newer prediction for me. Keep in mind, I used to say Trey in this answer. Coming out of the OTAs, I was saying Trey in this answer. But watching the practices, I believe that it's, and the games, I believe that it's Sam Darnold in that position. And I do think that he's earned it. Now, something I talked about with Tim today and something we've talked a lot about, I was thinking about, I don't want to keep talking about this, but was thinking about it in a way that a way to address something that comes up every time we talk about it, which is the Sam Darnold statistical history, right? The 55 turnovers or the 55 interceptions and the 35 fumbles versus Trey's lack of opportunity and lack of playing time. I think a lot of people argue that Sam Darnold's had a lot of opportunity and Trey hasn't had any, and Sam's had plenty of time to show us who he is, and he's shown us who he is. And as I've said repeatedly, Kyle doesn't care about what he did with the Jets or the Panthers. That has nothing to do with it. But I also want to be clear about where I am with Sam, which is intrigued. That is the word I continue to use, intrigued. What that does not mean is I'm convinced. This sport in particular, at this position especially, is filled with players who look good in practice and don't look good in games, who look good in the preseason but don't look good when the real chips are down, who can handle things before there's heat. But once we're in week 7 of real pressure and they've been getting hit week after week after week and the honeymoon period is over, they burn out after a short period of time. And we don't know. I am open to the possibility that Sam is different than the guy he's been. That's not saying he is not that guy. Odds are, in the history of this sport, we can find some exceptions. If you average 1 interception a game over the course of 4 years, that's probably who you are. Probably. Odds are, if you want your team starting quarterback within 3 years, you're probably not going to be that team starting quarterback, with some obvious exceptions and some not obvious exceptions. The reality is that the odds, fair or not, the circumstances, fair or not, are stacked against Darnold and Trey Lance. And really, for that matter, they're stacked against Brock Purdy. Difference with Brock is he's earned more equity with this organization than either of the other two guys because he's won games. And the way he's played in those games, has earned him respect internally. Forget about our opinions of it all. Has earned him a lot of respect and equity internally. As I've said, I don't think his leash is extra long, but I think it's comfortable. I think it's comfortable. But I am intrigued by Sam, and that's where I continue to be. He did nothing today to discourage that. We'll see what happens on Friday and what things look like. The starters, as I mentioned earlier, are going to play a little. What that means for the quarterbacks is not entirely clear, but starting players will play. That's at least what Jake Brendel said, the starting center, his expectation is. So, yeah, I'm optimistic. And my stance continues to be with Trey Lance. I've seen there's enough there that I would not give up on trying to develop him. Brandon Allen is getting no throws in these practices. None. So, we could come up with theories on that, but the most obvious theory sometimes is the answer, which is the guy that gets no reps isn't going to be the guy that gets to play for the team. And I think even if we take away the last 2 years, and if we just took, say, the last preseason game and some of these practices, there's enough there with Trey that it's worth working with. But I'll refer you back to the thing Brandon Allen, of all people, said, and I've repeated it many times. He said at the beginning of camp to Mayoko, this offense is about being on time and on target. And I believe that Darnold has done that better than Trey. That is in these practices and these 2 preseason games. And I guess, like all these things, you could reach a different conclusion, but I think a different conclusion based on these practices and these games would be incorrect. If your argument is he's turned it over too much, there's no hope, you know what? I don't have a problem with that argument. That's a legitimate argument. Like, hey, I've seen enough. If that's your take, okay, I get that. But I need to see it in games with this coach. And I know Kyle rightfully takes criticism for this Trey situation, the evaluation, the process, and the lack of development. But you can't deny that quarterbacks generally, far more than not, seem to he gets the best out of them, whatever it is they got. And I think it's reasonable to think that he can do a better job with Sam Darnold than Adam Gase. Where's he at? Seriously, what? Can somebody Google that? And Matt Rule, who's coaching at Nebraska. So, if people want to say 5 years of shitty play for Darnold is enough, I didn't think he'd look as good as he's looked in practice. He hasn't erased any of the 5 years other than to say, I'm intrigued. I don't know why that makes people so angry, or why there's the lack of understanding that saying, yes, it's been terrible. Most guys who I think are that bad, I don't know if they practice this well, but this is just practice and preseason games. So we'll see. That's fine. I don't know. Maybe we won't need to wait for it. Chad says, sounds like a damn good day for Purdy. You don't give enough credit to him. Too busy simping on Sam. LOL. I don't give enough credit to Purdy? Huh. Okay. Maybe I don't. I don't know. I don't really think of it as the percentage of credit I give. Thought he had a good day. He's a starting quarterback. He looked like a starting quarterback. I thought he looked like, when I say look, I mean played like a starting quarterback. He played like a starting quarterback the other day. So he's the starting quarterback. I don't, I guess maybe this goes to it. Why are you pessimistic for Purdy? Have you seen, what have you seen to say Purdy's going to fail and Sam will ascend? I am not pessimistic on Purdy for any reason other than small sample size. That's it. And I've said that a lot. Like we've all watched enough football to have seen a lot of quarterbacks who can look good for 3 games, 8 games, 9 games. Franchise quarterback, it's a big leap to make it to franchise quarterback. And that's why I feel the way I feel. If I'm thinking about it now, I mean, partly if you told me he was, he had Darnold or Trey's arm or their size, I'd probably be a little more optimistic. So I guess it's partly just history, right? Franchise quarterbacks are outliers, and franchise quarterbacks are even greater outliers when you start removing elite traits. But it's mostly just sample size. That's all. Like, I think he's got a lot. The question is, where's his ceiling? And can he get to his ceiling in a way that makes him a franchise quarterback? Because, franchise quarterbacks get really expensive. And once they're really expensive, they have to do more than when they're not franchise quarterbacks. Now, sometimes you get a middle class of quarterback, right? Derek Carr's in the middle class financially. Jimmy Garoppolo's expensive, but he's in the middle class. And that's where the Niners have lived, right? They've lived in the middle class world. So what you don't want is a non-franchise quarterback becoming franchise expensive. But that's a problem for another day with him. That's the answer to that question. That's where I'm at. It has nothing to do with how he looks to me in a practice or how he's looked in games. It's more just understanding the odds and not wanting to be a runaway train of optimism. Dan says, did I hear right that Kyle said Bosa's negotiations are going exactly how he thought? It seems like a good sign. So I was in the press conference today. He did say that. I think first of all, they are extremely sensitive on saying anything that could disrupt the balance of the world as it relates to this negotiation. He was then asked, well, if you knew it was going to go this way, when is it going to end? Can you announce that date now? As a joke. I don't know if Kyle was being sincere about that or not, if he actually is expected it to go this way or not. But I think it's understandable. I think if you would ask a lot of people, they would have said, yeah, this is going to be, we talked about it. If you'd asked us, we talked about it. This is going to be a little, this is not going to be easy. And it is their history. So, QB1 is settled. Do you think, Dr. Guy? I've also decided I'm going to be an officer guy, and I'm just going to, I'm going to do a narrative patrol. I'm going to patrol the narratives. Somebody's got to do it. and I'm going to embrace it. I used to hate the word narrative. I still kind of hate the word narrative. But, instead of complaining about it, I'm going to step into my community and give something back. So you're now looking at the narrative patrol officer guy as well. And my role as doctor guy, I have no idea. I mean, he got hit on the arm. That's different than a non-contact injury, I guess. So other than that, I won't pretend to know the answer to that question. Joe, this is a good question, Joe. I was a little disappointed today. Maybe he did it pre-practice. Did not see Jake Moody kick today. And today would have been a very interesting day for Moody to kick because the wind was unusual today. The Niners practice field is parallel to the Niners to Levi Stadium's field. That is, it runs the same direction. Now, it's not surrounded by a stadium, so the wind is not the same. But the wind was, for almost all of training camp, from behind the kicker. You can only kick one direction there. And the wind has been from behind the kicker. Today, the wind was actually a little bit across the practice field. Stronger than I've experienced across. I've experienced some strong tailwinds there. I've not experienced the crosswind that we had today at Niners practice. So I don't know if Moody kicked there today. And if someone's reported this, I know we've got our Dove Klymans here, our Ari Myrovs in the chat here, our Bleacher Reports in the chat. Feel free to let me know. Maybe he kicked in the stadium today. By the end of practice, he was still in cleats and Zane was in sneakers. So I don't know. Maybe they went into the stadium and kicked. I don't know. But today was a day with a crosswind that I thought it would have been a good day for him to work. Now, maybe he did. Maybe he did without the media there. Maybe he did in Levi's. As it relates to Zane, I was having a conversation today with John Dickinson and Josh Dubow on the side about like how it all fits together and how much of a leash does Moody get. And, I think Dubow's point was, hey, there's always like 10 guys available on the couch that are about the same. So you don't have to really hang on to Zane Gonzalez. Ideally, you could trade him, right? But I think what'll be interesting where Zane comes into play is if this Friday is bad for Moody. If Moody makes his kicks, then that's the last time we'll see them before the season. And, he'll show up in Pittsburgh as the only kicker on the roster. If he struggles again on Friday night, then it gets weird. And then you start, you got to figure out, is he our guy when the season starts? Like, is it possible? I don't know. Is it possible for it to go so bad on Friday that he's not your kicker week one? If that's the case, you probably have to find an injury for him. You know what I mean? Like, he misses 2 kicks on Friday. He's going to have a hamstring and be on IR for 4 weeks. Red shirt. Does it get to the point where you need somebody else? I don't know. But could you get Zane Gonzalez to practice squad? I would think not, but maybe. I mean, maybe, there's a certain like replacement level kicker that is generally available. So that's an interesting question. I mean, Friday night would be a big night for that. Josh did the research, said Adam Gase hasn't coached since being fired. Really? I guess I should just believe you and not go do the research myself. Huh. How about that? Comment. Moody sucks Friday. Won't be surprised. We like to gamble with players in the 3rd round. I don't trust Moody more than other people don't trust Darnold. Yeah, it's he's got to go earn that. There's no doubt about that. He's got to earn a lot of, it's easy to feel positive and say positive things, but I think everybody holds their breath right now. Mitch asks, who do you like as the starting defensive end opposite Bosa this year? I like Drake Jackson. better than Cleveland Ferrell. If you've got Bosa, a Hargrave, and Armstead, then I say go with the young guy who potentially has a higher ceiling in this case, because it's the perfect time for him to play next to these other three studs. You know, I was having the conversation off the air with Kawakami today. If Cleveland Ferrell would have, you know, would he? How many of these these good Niner teams would he have made the team on? Because I was skeptical. He thought he would. He would on some of them, but that's the options right now. Like there are not a ton of options for them. You know, what they do on the defensive line will be interesting. You figure Drake, Hargrave, Armstead, Bosa, Furl. I guess I can use one hand for 5. And then you've got maybe T.Y. McGill, Kevin Givens, Javon Kinlaw. I don't think he's been great, but Marlon Davidson looked good the other day. I was talking to Cam Inman about this today. Maybe you could get him to practice squad, you'd think. Robert Beal. I mean, Robert, what did I get to? Did I get to 8? So 9, Robert Beal, your 5th rounder out of Georgia. Provided he's healthy, he's got to make it. He's not going to, I would imagine he's not going to pass through waivers. So, you know, there's 9. And I don't know the Kinlaws of those. Did I say Austin Bryant? Maybe that's 10 if you need pass rushing. So I don't know. I think Kinlaw is, I agree that he's on the bubble. He's been healthy until he got sick the other day, but he wasn't injured. He's just sick. But I didn't, you know, I don't think he's been great, or at least in the game he played. So maybe this is a big game for him. Drafted a kicker proudly with a 3rd round pick. Yeah. But remember what the colleagues say. Oh, it's not really a 3rd. It was a comp. It's like a 4th. You know, I think I was in the minority. I didn't have a big problem with it because I said, as long as it works, who cares? Well, it's got to work. Yeah. I mean, you're not exposing him. That's maybe it's IR or whatever for him. So, I think they're in a safe position there. What do you think about Kalia Davis? I think they're in a good spot with him just because coming off an ACL. Actually, Inman made this point today. Coming off an ACL, you're probably not going to have a problem getting him to practice squad. So, from an interior line standpoint, they're in better shape than they are from a backup pass rusher standpoint. After Taco went out, got hurt, and the season's over. So that hurt. I got hurt because he was playing well. Let's see. I talked earlier with Kawakami about Cincinnati needing a backup. So there's another. I'm just going through some of my notes here. 19 days now from the opener. No Bosa. Cal said he'd designate QB3 before kickoff. Yeah, 90 minutes before the first Steeler game. That's when you're required to put in your 46-man active roster. I've been predicting that's when he'll do it. And that's basically what he said today. Jake Brendel had very positive things to say about Spencer Burford today. Just a little, if I go a little nitty-gritty roster note, I asked him about Burford because I said, look, he was in a weird spot last year. He was young, played probably before a lot of people expected, but that doesn't really matter. But he was young. He got a lot of snaps, which is good, but he was kind of sometimes platooned. So what do you think of the position that he's in now? And he says what Brendel said about Burford was it's night and day. He said better shape, knows the offense better, came back meaner in terms of just the physicality that's required on every play. And he thinks he's going to be much better. And he was optimistic about McKivitz today too. So that was a little offensive line insight we got from Jake Brendel today. I'm just looking one thing up here. Hmm. One thought I did have today was the lack of Bosa hurts this offensive line. Bosa not being there to practice. And I thought of it when Brendel said today, somebody asked him about Javon Hargrave and how useful Javon Hargrave is to practice against. He said he's got one of the fastest get-offs he's ever practiced against. Well, Nick Bosa not being there, like, do any of these practices mean anything to Trent Williams? If he's not practicing against Bosa, what is he getting out of any of this? All due respect to everybody. Maybe Trent would say, hey, man, come on. These are real NFL players. Practicing against real NFL players is valuable for me. But iron sharpens iron. Trent Williams going up against Nick Bosa. I mean, neither one of them takes every practice rep, but when they go up against each other, that's got to be pretty valuable for the two of them. Not to mention, if Bosa could line up against Colton McKivitz a few times here in practice, getting ready for the Steelers, he's getting ready to block TJ Watt. So I do think, even though no one's really been worried, and the Niners are saying we're not worried, and I don't think there's a chance Bosa misses week 1. I do think, as much as we like to protect Nick, I do think there's a value in Bosa being here to practice with this team for his guys. Now, do we know what Trent Williams is going to look like week 1? Yeah, we do. When I say for his guys, I don't mean he owes them that as a teammate. I just mean they are missing an opportunity to practice against one of the best players in the league right before they play one of the best players in the league. And if you going through the checklist of things of does this matter, does this matter, does this matter, does this matter, Bosa not practicing matters maybe less to Nick than it matters to these other guys who would get an opportunity to practice against him, right? Oh, I went to band and I actually put him on. That's a L. So, Ilm Manning, good, man. Good player. Everyone's been talking about him, so I'm not breaking any news here. But good player. Anyway. Tried to go ban and went add to the stream. Bosa sitting out is hurting McKivitz. It would benefit tremendously. Matthew says, can I get a GFF grade on Kapler? You know, I missed Zach, Nate, Kyle Harrison's start today. I gotta go back and watch that. I don't know what I would GFF Kapler on. Not one from Brendel. Did Brendel not today? Now that you say that, very direct, intentional, very intentional. UCLA guy. UCLA guys, all sharp. Doubt it. Maybe. Yeah. That's a draft. You know, here's the thing. If they stay at 12 and get Mac Jones, is anybody happy about that right now? I would say no. I'm not saying it was okay. I'm just in the alternate universe where they stay at 12 and somehow Mac falls to them, which they said wouldn't happen. Is there a player that the Niners will cut that won't clear waivers that you would keep on your 53? Well, I mean, I think there are guys that I would keep that they will keep. Jalen Graham and D. Winters, I think they'll keep because they like them and they won't clear waivers. I think if they were maybe he makes the team, but if Chris Conley or Willie Snead were going to go through waivers, I think they'll clear. I mean, I like Coletto, but I think he'll clear waivers. But you wouldn't keep him on the 53. So I'm not sure that they're. I mean, we'll see. Like, I guess they could. I mean, one of these linebackers, or maybe two of them, we'll see with Marcelino McCurry, Ball, and Demetrius Flanagan foul. Someone's going to be the odd man out there, but I don't think so. Like, I don't think there's that many like big questions other than let's see how the back end of the defensive line fits together. Jordan Mason today, it went like pretty unaddressed. Him and Diamador Lenore, I think Fred Warner kind of started it. Him and Diamador Lenore going at it, throwing hands kind of, which all these they got a bunch of hurt running backs. Their running backs today were Ty Davis Price, Jordan Mason, and Brian Hill. I'd say when you've lost Mitchell, McNichols, LeBourne is gone, McCaffrey's not practicing, I'd say that's not the day to throw hands when someone's wearing a helmet, but, easy for me to say, chilling from the sideline with a sandwich in my belly. Fred is always instigating in the best possible way. That is true. Mac Jones at 12 doesn't set them back or cost them 2 first and a third. Look, I am not going to be put in the position to defend what they did. I'm not going to do that. But what I would counter with is, are they set back? Like if Purdy is their starting quarterback, how set back are they really? Now you could argue, well, they could have drafted Mac, kept their picks, still gotten Purdy. And that'd be a fair counter. I'm not arguing for the trade. I'm just saying they missed the opportunity cost on those picks is significant. Can't deny it. Bad. But how set back are they really? Well, they could have drafted another D lineman, a cheap D lineman. I mean, you can make the case. I'm not saying that you're wrong, Kid Icarus. I'm just saying, on the other hand, it's kind of incredible that they're not more set back. Always wanted Surtain. All right. I got people sending me Kawakami pictures. Are there questions you want to ask in a press conference that you don't, because no matter how you word it, it'll make you look like a jerk? There's always ways to word it, I think. I actually wanted to, I didn't get in today on Shanahan. I had a Ronnie Bell question for him that I'll maybe save for another day. We'll see how things shake out with Ronnie. All right, before we go here, anything else? My wife's not busy anymore, and now I should stop being busy. Stop streaming. Evening streams, not common here. All right, I think that's the notes for the day. Back out there tomorrow. I'll think about this answer. I don't have anything off the top of my head for you. But you want a get to know segment? I can give you a get to know segment. Cosmo says, if I'm the only one that's glad training camp is over. No. But if you are bored with training camp now, wait till next week. The only good news about next week is that it's a week closer to the game. We're going to have college football games this weekend. The NFL games will be done. But, well, I guess we'll be closer to football. All right. If you're here right now, hit that like button. Subscribe. Some of you, a lot of you actually, are not subscribed. Some of you might even think you're subscribed and are not subscribed. You imagine the embarrassment when you find out about that? You don't have to tell anybody. But just hit that subscription button. Oh, look, come on. Like, tell you what, if I do this, will you just hit the goddamn subscription button? I mean, for the love of God, subscribe to the channel and help it grow. Holy smokes. What are we doing here? Another practice report or something like that coming tomorrow. And we'll have more to talk about. Podcast is down in the description below. John and I put out a big podcast on Monday. You can also watch it. And I'm going to throw some Kawakami on the podcast as well. But go watch the video from earlier today with Kawakami. He comes in a few minutes and wanders into the thing. Well, yeah. One way to get me to stay on the stream is to ask me what I'm up to. We're doing any Cal games? Yes, week 3, Idaho. Pac-12 Network. And then my first FS1 game will be, I think, September 30th, something, maybe week 5. I don't know where that game's going to be yet. I've got some guesses, but yeah, that'll be that first game. Unless something changes, I'll update you. But thank you for asking, and thanks for enjoying TK. If you missed that, go check it out. All right. Good night, everybody. Holler at your boys, and see you soon.